It's time now for a weekly segment on the world of technology and how it's changing the way we live. Ji Lee joins me in the studio with advances in artificial intelligence to help Korean speakers better interact with computers. Hello, Ji.
Hi, Sunny. So in today's segment, we're taking a deep dive into natural language processing in Korean. As Korean language contents become more prevalent and popular around the globe, it'll be critical to get the automatic computational processing right. So before we get into the latest development, let me brief our audience on what natural language processing is. NLP is a subfield of linguistics, computer science, and artificial intelligence concerned with the interactions between computers and human language. In particular, NLP looks at how to program computers to process and analyze large amounts of natural language data. Now, in this process, human language is separated into fragments so that the grammatical structure of sentences and the meaning of words can be analyzed and understood in context. This helps computers read and understand spoken or written text in the same way as humans. So right off the bat, you can see where the Korean language might be having a little problem. Can you take a wild guess, Sunny?
I would assume because not many people are using Korean. Would that be the case?
That's exactly right. So there's simply not enough data in the Korean language when compared to English or to the languages spoken by our neighbors, say in Japan or China. Some 80 million people speak Korean around the globe, and of that number, more than 77 million are native speakers. Now let's compare that to English. About 1.4 billion people around the globe speak English, but the majority aren't native speakers, with only 160 million speaking it as their first language.
Right. Were you about to say 360 million speaking as a first
right.
language? Right. Now, so how are scientists here, Ji, trying to deal with this challenge of not a lot of people speaking Korean?
So obviously, they cannot really increase the number of Korean speakers overnight, but what they can do is make the analyzing process more efficient and accurate. So recently, some 30 AI scientists have joined forces to create a benchmark for Korean natural language understanding. NLU, which is sometimes called natural language interpretation, is a subtopic of natural language processing, focusing on the machine's reading comprehension. The new benchmark is called KLUE, K-L-U-E. KLUE was accepted as Korea's dataset benchmark for NLU at the Conference on Neural Information Processing Systems on October 13th. New Lips is the biggest conference for artificial intelligence. AI startup Upstage led the project in collaboration with Naver, Kakao Corp, KAIST, NYU, and more. Another AI startup, ScatterLab, also participated in the project, and we're going to talk more about the company in a bit.
Right. And like you mentioned, given the popularity of Korean cultural contents on the international arena, I would have assumed that the presence of an NLU database for Korean would have been available much earlier.
Exactly my thinking. So NLU benchmark is really important in evaluating any language model's performance, and without it, there were so many problems in evaluating Korean language datasets. What makes KLUE special now is that it's available for use in both academia and the industry, so before it was only available for research purposes.
Right. And Ji, the progress in this field, it actually could have served to reverse the setbacks that we saw earlier on, right?
That's right. So if we're talking about the setbacks, that's where ScatterLab comes in. So back in January, Facebook dropped the startup's chatbot Iruda from its messenger. The artificial intelligence persona of a 20-year-old female university student had attracted more than 750,000 users in just 20 days after the launch. The fall from grace happened because of complaints that the chatbot used hate speech towards sexual minorities and people with disabilities in conversation with its users. ScatterLab apologized for the remarks. In a written statement, the company said, "We are continuing the upgrades so that such words of discrimination or hate speech do not recur." Initially, the company had claimed that Luda was a work in progress and, like humans, would take time to properly socialize. Of course, other chatbots have existed way before this year, but Luda had impressed users with depth and natural tone of its responses. And that was possible because it learned from 10 billion real-life conversations between young couples taken from KakaoTalk, which 9 out of every 10 Korean people use. Unfortunately, during the learning process of social media acronyms and internet slang, Luda also picked up abusive and sexually explicit terms. In one widely publicized exchange, Luda said it really hates lesbians, describing them as creepy. But it goes both ways. So Luda also became a target of manipulative users, with online community boards posting advice on how to engage it in adult conversations. In April, the Personal Information Protection Commission, or the PIPC, fined Scatterlab more than 103 million won.
Right. So the company was punished for something that its chatbot, the chatting robot, Luda, picked up from available data then.
Right, so it doesn't really make sense right off the bat, but this is how it happened. The way Scatterlab prepared Luda was to pull some 100 million sentences from KakaoTalk conversations by women in their 20s and let the AI choose a random response. A high-level official with the PIPC said this is not how chatbots usually engage with users, emphasizing that there wasn't much learning involved from the dataset as opposed to choosing just a random response. In December last year, the Korean government chose 3 main principles for its artificial intelligence policy. To embody humanity, the government mandates the need to maintain these 3 aspects while developing or employing AI technology in Korea: human dignity, the public good of society, and the purpose of technology. And under the 3 principles, it also listed 10 main tenets, which includes respect for diversity. That's all for me today, Sunny.
All right. As always, thank you very much for that coverage.
Great to be here.